Today's chat is brought to you by Audible. Get a free audiobook download and a 30-day free trial at www.audibletrial.com/FFC. With over 180,000 titles to choose from your iPhone, Android, Kindle, or any MP3 player, this is a great alternative for keeping up with the monthly Focus Fire Chat Book Club.
Welcome to Focus Fire Chat. Explore together.
Welcome back for episode 104 of Focus Fire Chat, recorded live on October 13th, yes, Friday the 13th, 2017, over on twitch.tv/FocusFireChat. Big shout out to the live chat here. Thank you so much. Wow, I cannot talk this evening. Thank you so much for spending your evening with us. This is your host, Blue Crew 86. I got that part. I got my name right. I can pass the SAT test. All right. Justin had to take the night off due to a bit of a change in schedule, and, he's building a house, basically. So be sure to send him some Sneck love over on Twitter at JustinSaint0516. I believe, was it this week or was it the week before that he actually had a Sneck in the house?
He was talking about it last week, so I think it happened last week.
Right. Be sure to reinforce his love for all things Sneck on Twitter. And then Mel, make sure that she knows that we miss her. She is actually at another convention, I think this weekend, or maybe she's getting ready for another convention. She's in the middle of like that insane convention schedule. And Snafu was the last weekend. I want to say it's like C4. It's C4, I think. I think it's the Canadian one.
I don't know.
But she's either there or she's getting ready. But be sure to let her know that we miss her over on Twitter, also at The Wind of the Stars. And then obviously from the depths of the madness-inducing mind maps, we are joined by our favorite Gunter, the one and only Green-Eyed Music Lover. Green, I hope you're doing well. Are you looking forward to tonight's chat?
Mm-hmm. And I finished the raid finally. I have some raid gear on tonight. I feel like I look like a Scion, though. Like the helmet makes it really look like a Scion.
I finally got to play some strikes. So
nice.
That's how I got my current favorite scout rifle, the Nameless Midnight. That thing has explodey bullets, and it's fun.
Ooh.
So
explodey bullets mean fun.
Yeah. It makes me feel like I'm actually doing damage when I'm really probably not. Let's run through the intro real quick, and then we'll jump right into tonight's chat. Our topic for this week's chat is going to be a look at the new information on the Traveler in Destiny 2. Before we jump into that, however, I do have a few housekeeping notes to run through. In our last chat, we discussed the evolution of light. If you ever miss an episode and would like to catch up, please be sure to check out the new FocusFireChat.com for archives, articles, and links to the other aspects of Focus Fire Chat. If you don't mind, please give us some feedback on iTunes to let us know how we're doing, as well as helping us continue to grow. As many of you already know, Focus Fire Chat is a cross-community gathering where the intent is to offer a week-long, in-depth view of a particular subject from within the lore of Destiny and other games. This chat begins every Tuesday morning and runs until the following Tuesday, with topics decided by the group via a poll that begins every Friday and ends on the Tuesday morning of the new chat. Every Friday at around 10 p.m. Central, we get together to stream a recap of the previous week's chat for those who are unable to participate. Please be sure to also give some support to the other podcasts in the Guardian Radio Network, found at theguardiansofdestiny.com. These include Guardian Radio, the first and longest running Destiny podcast on the net, Guardian 1, Ghost and Echoes, which also has the Destiny audio grimoire from Destiny 1, and the network's newest edition, a non-Destiny focused podcast, Paragon Radio. Our next chat is going to be a discussion on the new information of war mines that we have so far in Destiny 2. Be sure to weigh in on the poll this weekend to let us know which topic y'all wanting to dig into after that. Links to that poll can be found on either Twitter at FocusFireChat or within our Discord server. I've asked Green to put together a high-level summary of tonight's topic, and this is what she had to say.
The Traveler ushered in the Golden Age
gifted us with extended life and greater understanding of many things before pushing back the darkness. The traveler came out of the void that surrounds all things, flitting its way across systems, cultivating various civilizations, then moving on. Always moving on, until its untimely slumber here on Earth. It was silent for so many years, but still inspired many to fight for it and its resting place. Now, with Destiny 2, our traveler has reawoken. But at what price?
Before we jump into the information and thoughts that the community had about the new information on the Traveler in Destiny 2, however, let's look at this week's Lost Lore. All right, Green. This one is this one's kind of your specialty. So you wanna lead us through?
I don't know if it's my specialty. But
oh, okay. I guess you were.
Yeah.
I guess this was kind of one of the ones that you kind of found.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah. So if some of you follow me on Twitter, you've noticed that I post a lot of Reddit links to the Destiny lore Reddit because I like
awesome.
giving. Yeah. A, it's awesome, and B, I like giving people traction and try to help them get traction as much as possible, especially if they have questions that are not generally answered a lot of the times on Reddit. I like to get them more exposure so people will jump in there. And this one was actually a really active thread this week. It was the one about the Ghost Primus, which is, I believe, it's not a scout rifle, is it an auto rifle from the raid?
Let's go with that. I just know the lore of it. I'm dead serious. Like I just know the lore. I'm really bad at the actual thing.
It is the kinetic auto rifle from the raid, and it's really pretty, and I have it. But
is that the one that I think I was talking? You were like, oh, if you hold down, it fires more accurate, or is that the one that you like hold down? The longer you hold it down, it does something.
Well, kind of. I mean, it's just a really steady auto rifle. I don't know if it actually, I don't think it has a perk that says it gets more accurate the longer it's held down. It has high impact reserves. Oh, okay. And yeah, it does improve stability and accuracy as the magazine gets lower.
Oh, okay, as the magazine gets lower, okay.
Yeah, and it's called Under Pressure, which now I have that song stuck in my head.
Yes. Well, so, and I'm gonna definitely link it. So part of this, news section that we're doing is, like Green said, kind of. I think we're gonna probably just start kind of really heavily looking at Destiny lore subreddit, really to look and see what we're having there. If we find anything really interesting in chat that we see, we'll definitely pull those in. Obviously, but the Destiny the Destiny lore sub. God, I am not gonna be able to talk this week. The Destiny lore subreddit. Is a very rich resource especially for those kind of bothersome questions that no one knows the answer to. So this one though, and like Green was saying, this one was dealing with the Ghost Primus, and the post in question that we're going to be looking at is one that said Gaul was known as the Ghost Primus despite the Cabal having no word for ghost. It's user future observer, so it's actually a really good kind of question. So it's basically, it derives from D1's grimoire. I believe it was Ghost Fragment Cabal 4.
Yes.
Was it Cabal 4? And it's basically like they don't have a word for ghost, and so they render it as dead person in their own language. And so in Destiny 2, it turns out that Gaul has a nickname basically of Ghost Primus. And so this was obviously this is in reference to him being his albinism, because he's an albino Cabal.
And a runt, apparently.
And a runt, and very just beat up on. And so the question therefore is like, wait, I thought you said they don't have a word for ghost. So is his name actually Dead Person Primus? Like, I mean, and you know, it's like, so he's like, what's going on? Is Bungie just forgetting about this, or, you know, whatever? I actually really liked the, I can never say this guy's name. Galhamar, who is actually, he's Destinopedia. He's one of the prime. I want to say Galhamar is actually the owner of Destinopedia.
He is an editor.
I know he's an editor, but I don't know. Does he run it, or?
I'm not sure who.
He's one of the main. He's one of the main editors, if not the one who runs it. And you know, he usually has really good counterpoints to a lot of the arguments. And I actually fully agree with his counterpoint here. Did I miss anything as far as the setup for that before I go into his kind of argument?
No, I mean, it's the idea that in Cabal 4, we literally had the Cabal asking, like, they called the ghost the dead person, and it's referred to as dead person throughout all of it, because they didn't understand that we relate to the ghost. We call our ghost, and it didn't make sense to them for the reasons that Galhamar talks about. Galhamar.
Galhamar, yeah. It's the name, like the name throws me. So anyways, Galhamar says, they have no word for ghost as humans know the term in describing our favorite little robot, but they would have a similar concept, just not word for their own. Ghost in the Cabal language could mean the same thing as spirit, phantom, wraith, specter, or any number of human synonyms, but while the idea is the same, the word as the Cabal understand it is not the same as the English word ghost. It's the same thing as in the Books of Sorrow, which why the English word year is used in the books, when the concept of a year as humans understand it doesn't exist for the Hive or Ecumen. The answer is simple. It's the translation. Whenever Gaul is mentioned as the Ghost Primus, Callus, another Cabal, is saying this, not a human. The writers just chose to use that word because it better conveys what they had in mind for you to visualize it. And then he goes on to say, you know, we humans call the ghosts, and this kind of goes back with Green's thing, but the Cabal would be confused since a machine can't be dead, so their word for it, dead person, indicates that there's something else going on. I think they believe the ghost, as a machine and thus sentient, is a dead person because it is not truly alive. And the kind of his point here is that, like, they have the word ghost, but their use of the word ghost cannot account for the nickname, I guess, if you will, that we have given these little small machines that we call ghosts, right? Because when we say, when we look at a ghost, that's not what if you pull up a dictionary for, you know, English, you look up the word ghost, it's not going to have a little person, little robot that is quirky and can't open doors. You know, it's going to have.
It just takes him a while.
It just takes a while. He can't process DOS, but it's not going to have the little robot thing, right? It's going to have a spirit. It's going to have a phantasm. It's going to, you know, an undead, you know, entity of some nature. So it's a very literal lost in translation, right? I mean, Green, would you agree with that? Do you have any?
I would even take it so far as to say that ghost is, when they're referring to him as a ghost, it's the fact that he was thrown out and supposed to be left for dead. So he's kind of like a phantasm coming back because he was originally supposed to be dead. He was literally thrown out as a runt when he was younger, partially because of his... Oh,
you mean Gaul?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's very specific. I think it's literal in a lot of ways. I think it's literal in the fact that it's referring to his coloring because he is albino, but I also think it's because he was thrown out. Think of him kind of like, I'm trying to think of the character. Moses kind of has that same story a little bit.
I'll totally be honest with you. I was thinking of the Badger from the Redwall series.
Yeah.
Sunstripe.
I can definitely
Exile of Redwall. Or no, Outcast of Redwall. Excellent book. If you haven't read it, you should go read it. It's totally awesome.
Also, isn't that a really good one for kids?
Yes. The entire Redwall series is really good for young readers in general, I think, in my mind. Mm-hmm. It's just also really fun to read, too.
Yeah, I know we suggested it for Julie's nephew, but the idea of Gaul being a ghost could be not only just based on coloring. I mean, we obviously have the connection to our ghost, which is kind of the dead person reviving type thing, this phantom that is with us constantly. But to the Cabal, the fact that he comes back from being outcast and is in this gladiator type Romanesque, I feel really bad because I want to bring up Richard Crowe. Not Richard Crowe. It is Crowe, but I don't think that's his first name. Gosh. But that gladiator movie. Anyway, he kind of has Russell. Thank you. I knew it was an R, but
are you not entertained?
He's kind of like the ghost of himself after being thrown out as a general. So it's very little in that respect too. But that's my take. I agree. It's a translation. And the other thing is we have the gun named Ghost Primus. I'm trying to remember where he is actually called Ghost Primus in game by any of the characters.
I'd
have to go back and listen to some tape.
Yeah, I don't know. It might have been in
campaign.
Not in the campaign, sorry, but in the it might have been dialogue. I'm sorry. I was searching for the word.
If he's actually not called Ghost Primus by anybody, it could literally just be us assigning that name to him as well.
Right. I mean, like the actual entry for the Ghost Primus rifle does say the Ghost Primus was strong because of his disfigurement, not in spite of it. He alone had the vision to share my dream of a new perfect world. Gaul was a creature of singular beauty, and I loved him. So,
which sounds like it's the perspective of
Callus.
What's his right? Well, no, is it I don't think is it Callus that?
Yeah, because
Callus is the emperor because it's the other guy,
the consul,
the red guy, the consul, because the consul is the one who rescued them.
Right. Well, but then he goes on to say Gaul was an unexpected gift to my Colosseum, a disfigured albino from the outer waste who defeated opponents 3 times his weight. Blah blah blah.
Yeah,
he
I can see it being from both perspectives. I mean, it's a raid gun, so it makes sense if it was Callus.
Right,
but...
and I think most of the other guns are from like all the pieces of the shadows are all from Callus's point of view. It also closes with a paragraph. He says, "I used to play a game with those puffed up aristocrats that would gamble in my arena. I bet on Gaul, and anyone who had displeased me had to bet against him. It was fun for a time, but his talent was too valuable to risk in the Colosseum. I appointed him Primus of the Red Legion, and instead set him loose upon my enemies." So I mean, I kind of take that as Callus. Like I read that as, because then
it's a pretty gun.
It is. It's which goes in line with the entire hedonistic theme that Callus kind of has against Gaul's more militant approach. But it does also speaks to Gaul's personality as well. Like he never attacked from the front, never stood in one place. And that is Pins is saying in chat. Ghost can also be defined as to leave a social gathering, often of an intimate atmosphere, without notifying others in the group. So you like ghost away.
You're ghosting. That's ghosting. A new thing.
Generally considered to be an odd way to act. So if you read the second paragraph of the Ghost Primus card, it says, he fought with terrible discipline and patience. Most gladiators wanted to stand in the center of the arena and trade blows until the weaker one died, not Gaul. He never attacked from the front, never stood in one place. Frustrated and exhausted, his opponent would make a mistake. Which is basically he ghosted around his opponents. Yeah, he was. So you're kind of are talking about like how the word Ghost Primus could be used to explain his albinism. It could also be his fighting style. He was a ghost. You can't hurt what you can't touch. And he kind of played the game of strategy against opponents who were relying on brute strength. So it's definitely definitely that. And I mean, and those are all actually, and again, kind of going back to the whole, did they actually use ghosts? Did they, whatnot? It's again, kind of going back to that nod that when we say ghost and we talk about the small robots that the Cabal call dead persons, God, I just went blank on what the word is when you apply a word to something that has no relevance to it. God, like it's, oh my God. I mean, I feel like an idiot. I just completely went blank on this one.
Somebody will bring it up.
I know someone will mention it. But like basically we're using a word that has nothing to do with the item that we're describing to describe an item.
It's
so
like anthropomorphism type.
Yeah, kind of.
But it's not.
But it's not, because we're not really anthropomorphizing it, but yes, it's very similar to that, and I feel like an idiot. I can't think of this word. But that's right. But that is often when you look at anything, even in human languages, if you translate from there's a plenty. One of my favorite words is sonder, and that is literally, the word means it's a very long definition, but sonder means the realization that everyone around you, who is nothing but a backdrop to your life, has a life just as full, if not fuller, than your own, in which you are nothing more than a backdrop. So like literally the feeling of sonder is realizing the depth of the personalities around you are just as deep as you, even though in your world, they are just 2D characters. In their world, you are just the same. You are just a 2D character, and the breadth of experience of just that realization, that phenomenal realization, is what's called sonder. There's tons of words that just you can't translate. A lot of words in like Japanese and Chinese languages, they have no English translation. There's a lot of German phrases that have no English translation, and they explain like these fascinating emotional experiences that just there is no way to translate that into a language that we speak, like the English speakers speak, but to them it is an integral part of their existence. And so in the same way that is lost in translation, this concept of ghost as a machine, the ghost is lost in translation. Right? I mean,
yeah, definitely. I can totally see that. It's just a fun thing to contemplate and talk about, because it is literal semantics at this point.
Right. It's literally right. It's literal semantics inside the game, which I love. I love it just makes it realize. Yes, idiom. A group of words established by usage of having a meaning not deducible from those of the individual words. Rain, cats, and dogs. See the light. Kind of. I love chat. Chat's we're working on it, chat. We're getting there.
Yep. We'll get there. Let's see here. Okay, so let's go into actually the Traveler itself for this week.
Okay.
You ready?
Yeah,
you ready?
You want to cue it up? I know it's broken, but Randy's ready to go.
I like Randy's upgrade.
All right, here we go.
Lorebot 2.0 activated. Query received. Interfacing with expanded database directory. Response received. Displaying on screen for review.
So, we have a lot of information about the Traveler from D1, and it's always kind of a good place to start at the beginning of that. Do we want to go back and read some of the cards from D1? I think we should at least touch on them.
Read at least the Traveler. Like the Traveler card, I think, is probably the one that I think probably would be the only one. Because everything else really kind of. I don't know. I'll
speculation.
Well, right, but as far as like something that's black and white, which, I mean, I understand the shock that there are things that are black and white in Destiny, but there are a few things. So I'll grab the Traveler card real quick. So for those who are new to the game, we used to have these really cool things called Grimoire cards that you might have heard some people upset about the removal of. This is one of them. This is the card called the Traveler. And it says, everything changed with the coming of the Traveler. It gave us gifts that transformed the solar system and the nature of human life. It ushered in the Golden Age, a time of miracles. But it never shared its deepest secrets. Where did the Traveler come from? Why did it offer us so much? Did it know it was being hunted across the stars? And why, when the darkness came, did it choose to stay and fight for us? Now the Traveler hangs silent above humanity's final sanctuary. It may be healing, it may be dying. It gave everything it had to save us, and now its power lies with us, its guardians. Obviously, there has been a few events in Destiny 2 that have happened since this.
A few?
Just a few. But this was one of the initial Grimoire cards that we actually got in Destiny Vanilla. So this was the introduction to the Traveler, which is why I kind of feel that it's an apt card to read. I know, Green, you had it here noted the Alpha Lupi cards. Did you want to talk about those at all?
Well, I mean, if we're going to go into some of the theories that I think could still somewhat hold up in D2 that we had in D1, because one of the biggest theories about the Traveler in Destiny 1 was the fact that the Alpha Lupi cards, Alpha Lupi, wow, you're rubbing off on me already. They are actually from the perspective of the Traveler. That was a very, very common theory that was brought up in a lot of different Reddit posts and whatnot. And I think it still holds up because of the vision that we have before we get our powers back. Before, like, after we fall, we have that really beautiful, beautiful vision that it's still my favorite cutscene in all of Destiny 2 so far. It is just gorgeous, and so much is packed in there, and I love it. But I would argue that is actually an Alpha by vision. It is not proven. That. It's not written anywhere, but I've always had that feeling that that's what that is. And if that's sent from the Traveler, great. If it's not, I don't know where it came from. But the Alpha Lupi visions, we have 3 other cards that came with the Alpha Lupi tag to it. And so if you want to check that out, that's a fun place to go and down a rabbit hole. I think they kind of hold up, but they're very vague, just like that vision.
The other really cool thing is, and this is kind of a fun conversation that we had back in Destiny 1, was way before Destiny even came out, there was an ARG that resulted in us getting this really awesome wallpaper, which, by the way, is still relevant if you haven't seen. I believe it was Kex that pointed this out over on Twitter. If you look at the wallpaper and you look at the right side, there are the pyramid ships.
Wait, what?
Yeah, they're pyramid ships. I'll send it to you. But the cool thing about it is, on this wallpaper, there is the kind of the arcing spherical, like almost alchemical looking diagram that was very popular with the Traveler and Destiny 1 and the Vault of Glass and like all this, it was a very, very popular symbol. And then inside of it, at certain points, there are actually the Grimoire cards that made up the Alpha Lupi series. The text is actually embedded in the wallpaper as well. There is differences in the text that kind of was because this was released before Destiny 1 was released. So there's a bit of differences. It's not a huge significant differences, but we did talk about that, I believe, in one of the episodes that we were back in Destiny 1. Again, not a huge thing. If you want to see the image, I have it saved. I can throw it into Discord if you guys want me to. Just let me know, and I'll send it over Discord. It's a really pretty wallpaper. It's a very, very pretty wallpaper. But yeah, it's a very interesting image. There's a lot of things, as is usual with Bungie, a lot of things to unpack from it. I'm trying to think, but yeah, I mean, that's Alpha. Alpha Lupi is, I mean, we did do a whole show on Alpha Lupi and only scratched the surface of it.
And there's so many videos out there. People have talked about Alpha Lupi for a while. Do you want to talk about the Orphic egg?
Yes.
Since
all right.
That is also your favorite.
It's one of my favorites. And I mean, like, granted, I have to give credit where credit's due, because this is the theory that may have made someone's career. Good job, Bife.
Yeah.
This is like I think this is one of his, if not his first videos about Destiny, was about the Orphic egg. Or the world egg, I think, is what he actually called it. But the Orphic egg is basically the equivalent of a world egg. It's just Orphic egg is the Greek mythology concept for it. And the Orphic egg is basically a cosmic egg from which is hatched the primordial hermaphroditic deity Phanes, or also known as Protojonas, which is also variously equated with, among other divine figures, Zeus, who then in turn creates the other gods. So this is basically the cosmic egg from which everything is born, the unmoved mover, if you would, from an Aristotle's point of view. And the cool thing about this is the Orphic egg is often depicted as an egg, like a sphere, kind of like the Traveler, with a giant serpent wound around it that is kind of protecting it and guarding it, or maybe attacking it, trying to eat it. We don't really know with it. And the name Orphic egg actually derives from the religious. So Orphic is a religious belief or practice that was associated with literature ascribed to a mythical poet named Orpheus, who, if you're a fan of Greek mythology, you'll probably recognize that name. This was the poet who descended into the Greek underworld and then came back and made the mistake of looking over his shoulder. He was very obsessed with the underworld, and especially with like Persephone and the figures of that. But there is an Orphic hymn in which, and this is a really cool connection, which says, "Ineffable, hidden, brilliant Scion, whose motion is whirring, you scattered the dark mist that lay before your eyes, and flapping your wings you whirled about, and through this world you brought pure light." So
yeah, definite connection.
A little bit of a connection there.
Which part? I mean, there's like the Scion. Granted, Scion is spelled Scion instead of
and Scion is usually registered like when you say the word Scion, it's usually like a reference to not a priest, but like almost like a seer, or an avatar. It's like a descendant. So like it's like usually of notable families. So like you see, like, you know, he was a scion of a wealthy family, but it's also often applied to divine entities. So like a scion of a divine person would be basically the avatar of that individual.
Definitely. I don't know. I mean, the other thing you have to remember from...
Sorry, just to interject. Yes, Chad is also saying it's an offshoot. So within regards to hereditary or plants, it's an offshoot or a twig that's usually used for grafting or rooting. So yes, Chad is mentioning that right now, and I just wanted to give them a nod real quick. So sorry for the interruption there.
Yeah, no worries. I mean, you definitely see a very Orphic egg with the serpent-like imagery from the very beginning of Destiny 1. And I think they actually played a nod to it in Destiny 2 with some of the imagery that they use. Because in the opening of Destiny 1, you have that brownish, like, directory type screen, where you see the Traveler and you see the weaving in and out of the darkness around it. And it's very serpent-like. It's not necessarily going, like, hugging the Traveler, but it's also around the Traveler.
And it's also like I always kind of saw it as the mist. Like it's a fog, you know, like when you okay, so like when you're fighting Taken, right? If you ever run into a Taken blight, or you know, like where they're summoning, and or the darkness balls that the captains throw, you know, it's very very misty. I don't like that's not the perfect word for it, but it's very like foggy, and it
visually
makes
obstructing.
Visually, yeah. Well, and I mean, obviously, yeah. That's the point. But like the aesthetics of how it obscures your vision is like a heavy fog is laid over you, and then if you look, yes, there you go, thank you. And then if you look at the director, like what you were saying at the beginning of the game, you know, for especially Destiny 1, which I don't think I don't know if they have this because they changed the director in Destiny 2, but if you go back and you watch opening scenes of Destiny 1, you'll see that kind of like what you're saying. It's kind of like this wavy dark matter but it looks like mist. It looks like a cloud. Is how I've always seen it. I've always seen it as a cloud. So reading this Orphic hymn, I'm like, yeah, you scattered the mist. You drove it back because it flapped its wings. You know, it released the light. And, you know, that's, to me, that just it makes perfect sense.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely one of the more credible theories, I think, as far as like what the Traveler stands for.
Yeah.
In game.
Or the inspiration, at least.
Right. I mean, obviously the Traveler has some very mechanical things going on, and it's not necessarily an egg. I mean, you can look at it now. You see all sorts of things, and I'd like to go inside the Traveler at some point. I just want to say that
the Everest frigate might be booking tours. They do warn that it smells heavily of vanilla, and there might potentially be tiger people.
Do you trust that man, though? Because
No,
I really don't trust that man.
I don't trust him at all, but I just find it hilarious.
I don't even think Tess even trust him.
I think there is a quote that like I heard her say something about like you can't trust everything that he says, but enough of it's okay, or so. Like she's like he basically makes us money, so we just put up with him. For those who are joining Destiny in Destiny 2 and might not have gotten, I think was it the first Festival of the Lost that we got the tiger mask?
Yes.
The Eververse has Tess, who is the purveyor of Eververse, has is it uncle? Is that what Fenchurch claims to be?
Well, that's what they call each other.
They call each other. Okay.
We don't know if it's necessarily relation.
Right. Well, and we figure it's not because both of them are guardians.
Right.
But basically the story is Fenchurch is a guardian, who is a guardian who has one of the few named ghosts that, well, up until the end of Destiny 1, he was one of the only ones that had a named ghost. And I cannot remember the name. Was it It wasn't Chester, was it? It was something. It was something like, but he was one of the ones that had one of the few that had a named ghost, and he was basically when he was resurrected, he had a silver coin, which we all now know to be the silver that we can, it's basically the microtransactions in Destiny. But Tess was also, when she was resurrected, also had a silver coin, and so Fenchurch Neville, that was who it was. God, I love that. Tess and Fenchurch basically found out that each of them had a silver coin, and they basically made the connection and made the just kind of conclusion that they obviously needed to stick together, and so they adopted the kind of the relation of uncle and niece to one another. And Fenchurch is this like really eccentric figure. We have never seen him in game, but we have like these little like notes and things from him throughout the Destiny 1, especially during the Festivals of the Lost, which was basically the equivalent of New Year's and or no, not Festival. That was the Dawning. Sorry, Festival of the Lost was Halloween, in which we got some masks, which were basically for the first Festival of the Lost were all Fenchurch quotes, and they were hilarious. Like
And amazing.
You definitely got the feeling that Fenchurch was not allowed in the tower because he just annoyed the ever-living bleepity out of everyone, including the speaker. But one of the quotes was from, or no, it wasn't the tiger, but one of the quotes, it was the Traveler mask. He claims to have been inside the Traveler and that it smells faintly of vanilla. And then there's another mask that was the Tiger Man mask, which is a bit of a nod to basically before Destiny 1 came out, there were some images of tiger people that we have not yet seen. And in so far as we have yet, there's nothing that we know of, but Fenchurch claims that as he was traveling through the Vex network, he met such a figure, and that he was a very, what did he say, a very loyal friend and companion or something like that. Fenchurch is amazing, but I would not.
Fenchurch is odd. Odd is a good word.
He's a good variant of Asher.
No, I'm just not going to identify that with any sort of comment. I just can't wait till we hear a certain person's perspective on Asher.
Oh yeah, that's true. That's very true. Oh man.
Mm-hmm.
Oh well, I mean, okay. So do you think that's I mean, to bring it back to the Traveler, that's kind of the build up. I mean, that's honestly the kind of the build up that we've had about the Traveler up until Destiny 2.
I mean, there's more things about it, like the actual. Oh gosh, now why am I blanking on the Ares 1? The whole Ares 1 mission, the Traveler, the very opening cutscene where you see the Traveler terraforming things, the knowledge that the Traveler actually moved from planet to planet / planetoid type thing, terraforming, which it moved even after it visited Earth the first time too. That was actually a big debate we had at one point. Fairly recently.
Still have.
I
see both sides. I actually do see both sides. I think it depends on it's again semantics. It all depends on what you interpret as the beginning of an age and all that. But
it ushered in the golden age. Anyway, just going to keep throwing that line out there. But I think, there's a lot of like nitpicky things you can get into that weren't super detailed. But if you want to know more about what we used to know about the Traveler, going back and watching some of those old clips or listening to our first episode on the Traveler.
Yeah. And man, if you've never seen the actual cinematic opening to Destiny 1, I really encourage you to go watch it. Cause I mean, even now it's a really cool opening. And I think that it does a really good job actually of explaining kind of the premise of Ares 1, especially. It gives a good feel for that entire Martian mission.
We have a Lore 101 video on that.
Mm-hmm.
It's
pretty good.
It's
it's a pretty good one. I don't know who made it, but she did a pretty good job with it.
I haven't made one in a long time. I have been making a crud ton of just clips of all the missions and stuff like that, and continue to make that. And I feel like I'm never going to be finished with that. But
well, real quick, I just want to take a chance to kind of speak to the sponsor of this episode, because Green has made it a point of making sure that I don't forget to do this. So as a part of the Focus Fire Chat community, you might have noticed that we have a monthly book club. If you don't notice that, hey, we have a monthly book club. And as many of us don't always have time to like sit down and actually read a book, even though it's the best way to read a book, a great alternative can be found over at Audible. So the FFC team would like to offer you a chance to try that alternative out by offering you a free audiobook download with a free 30-day trial to the service. All you have to do is visit www.audibletrial.com/FFC and sign up that way. And Green, I believe this month we actually are taking a break, right? We're doing a kind of a project in the book club, right?
Well, it's more of a, if you have your favorite book, and some people were asking about like series or something like that. I want to say favorite book even within a series, which I know is hard. I know that is very, very hard to do, especially if you love a series more than anything. Just give reason in book chat about why that is your favorite. Be pretty detailed about it. And I think it's a really good way to introduce people. Like, I want you to do your own advertisement for the book, essentially. And that way we get more people seeing all sorts of different types of books, because not all of us like the same thing. And that is one of the beauties of a group like this. Continue.
So just to kind of bring back to the Traveler, what I figured we'll do is we'll talk a little bit about the events in Destiny 2's campaign, because this is actually a really cool opportunity to talk about what we've learned, because we've learned quite a bit about the Traveler just in the short not the short, but for us, the short campaign of Destiny 2. There was quite a bit of information to be gleaned about the Traveler, mainly that, oh wait, it's still alive. It actually woke up.
Yay!
So first off, we are introduced to the Traveler as a character when it gets captured by, as Justin so lovingly calls it, the Starfish of Death. And that kind of it kind of verifies the theory that the Traveler is not just a catalyst of the energy, but is actually an active participant in the energy flow of light. Because as soon as that shield, snapped in place, as we all know, out went the lights on everyone.
Literally.
Yeah, I didn't even realize that. Yes, literally out went the lights. And so that kind of, solidified the theory and the model that a lot of people were having about that particular relationship, that the Traveler was still an active part in this entire big thing that's going on. And then the Spark videos, and Green, I know this is probably, I'm going to let you kind of take the Spark videos. What did you want to call out on those particularly?
Well, I mean, there's a lot to call out. We could probably, if we really wanted to, do a whole episode on the Spark video, on the original one, where you see the shard for the first time. We could do, I think we could do a whole episode on that. But, that original video, that cutscene, you have the imagery of the bird. Obviously, we kind of see that as Lewis later on, but flying towards the Traveler. But Lewis is kind of like a little ghost-like light bird type thing. And then you have all sorts of different aspects pulled into the video. If you haven't seen it in a while because you played the campaign and you'd like to see it again, head over to, it's technically on my YouTube page, Green Eye Music Lover YouTube page. I pulled the clips out and I've just been cutting all the different clips out. So if you want to see specifically just that clip without any lore background or anybody talking or mucking it up, just go and view that. It's an easy way to view it again. But yeah, the Spark videos, like right before we get the Spark, our Spark back and everything, there's so many little tidbits in there about the Traveler having energy and calling us to its other portion, which raises a lot of questions. Like, does that portion have sentience or consciousness to be able to share that? Are we hallucinating on the Cabal without having light? I don't know. I mean, there's lots of questions I have about the shard in particular, because the shard is corrupted, and there's a line in I want to say the campaign, or it might be part of one of the scannables, where it said the Traveler casted off this portion of itself. I mean, it definitely has a lot of things that should be answered at some point.
Oh yes. Honestly, you're talking about this the ghostly bird. And I honestly remember playing that, and I was like really confused for about a half a second because I was like, wait, I'm playing Destiny, right? I'm not playing Assassin's Creed. I'm really confused.
I liked the bird imagery, though.
No. I liked it. But like literally that was the thought that went through my head when that scene came on. I was sitting there and I was like, I'm playing Destiny 2, right? Like it's just like it was like I was like, yeah, no, that's fine. And I was like, what is that from? And it's Assassin's Creed, like because the connection to the birds.
Well,
which is a good
it
thing.
would be kind of awkward if they tried to have a flying wolf or anything like that.
I would not be opposed to it. I think it would be kind of fun, especially if they had one of the iron wolves with the weird mouths.
I still... oh, no, not the weird mouths. Ones that just never stop and they're constantly growling at you. Those wolves were not nice. They were not nice puppies.
Yeah, that's how Lefty got his nickname, was he tried to pet the wolf.
I would love to pet the wolves. Anyway.
Oh.
But, yeah, I don't know. I think it'd be a little too on the nose if they had a wolf flying.
Well, I mean, technically, isn't Louis technically a raptor?
Yeah,
I mean,
that's true.
Kind of is a flying wolf, but
yeah.
And then next we had you wanted to talk about Gaul and his entire
psychosis.
I don't even know what to call it.
Well, I mean, there's
He kind of snaps.
Yeah. Well, okay, so before Gaul infuses himself with, I don't even know what to call it, just the Super Saiyan power, essentially, and he's constantly asking the speaker about what is the Traveler, like why, and we kind of talked about this last week, it's like, why are Guardians picked? Why all this? He knows about the Traveler, which I think is really interesting. Like, he's been studying the Traveler. He knows that it's gone to multiple civilizations and knows that it leaves those civilizations. It doesn't stay. So he's confused as much as we are as to why the Traveler chose to stay, quote, and I'm doing air quotes for chose, because we don't know if it literally chose to stay or if it's something else, which at this point...
No, don't start that.
Anyway, Super Saiyan Gaul, when he does his infusion,
it's over 9,000.
That
I was really sad that he didn't yell that at least once when I was shooting him because he kind of
missed opportunity.
Missed opportunity there, Bungie. You even had the Super Saiyan fire going around him.
Well, at one point. I mean,
I did want to actually interject when you were talking about Gaul studying the Traveler. We actually do know that Callus actually also has studied some of these cultures, because in the expanded, or in the collector's edition, when you got the Cabal booklet, if you go back, and if you don't have the booklet, there's PDFs of this thing floating around everywhere, so it's not hard to find. But if you look at the page in which he is talking about Dominus Gaul, it's basically Callus's hit list of people that he wants assassinated for the Shadows.
Gaul is number one on that list, by the way.
Gaul is number one, which kind of makes sense. That makes sense. But when he explains Gaul, he compares him to the Krill. So Callus is very aware of things, and the Cabal as a general, have they've studied the I don't even know what you would call it, the universe, universes, the timelines. I mean, the
sociology.
Cabal,
I don't know.
Well, the Cabal have the access to the OXA machine, which is very similar to the Future War Cult's machine, apparently, and so it gives them. Yeah, it gives them access to a lot of knowledge. And so, I mean, Callus does compare Gaul to Oryx, and kind of shows, like, he's like, no, look, this is why, and he uses that as kind of an excuse of being like, this is why we don't do this, because it's going to end badly. Look at where this ended. And but my point there being is that it makes sense that Gaul would be cognizant, in hindsight now, now that we know what we know about the Cabal in Destiny 2, it makes sense that Gaul knows as much as he does about the Traveler, because they know they followed the path. They have followed its path and have studied it.
Here's a question for you, and this one just kind of popped in my head, and I wish we would have had to actually talk about it. Do you remember what order he gets his light powers in? Because I know, and he gets them one at a time, whether it's solar first, then void, then arc, or
I don't know if there's a set order, but I know that they are all warlock abilities.
Right, that he actually uses, which I think is interesting. I mean, it would be kind of devastating if he had a Night Stalker blow.
Yeah, I was just glad when that happened. I was like, oh no, he's getting powers. Please no golden gun. Please no golden gun. Because that was one of those, like,
that hunters are OP.
I was like, I just don't want to deal with the golden gun. Or the Night Stalker too, but like at least like the Night Stalker, you can kind of like walk out of the tether. But the golden gun, it's like, oh, I poked my head around the corner at the wrong time.
Right.
Checkpoint.
It's just, even though he does get the warlock powers, they're not as powerful as our warlock powers, because one hit from a Nova Bomb and we're done. Right. With he's still kind of sort of learning it, so it's like baby warlock powers.
Which is interesting too, because if you look at the amount of light that he's ingesting at that point, you would think that it actually would be super powerful.
But that goes back to he doesn't have a ghost, and we had that theory.
The regulator.
One that goes... Right, the ghost is the regulator / focuser to focus our light, to make us actually more effective. I think that's the reason why he, cannot process the light correctly, which is part of his implosion and everything, which we're going to get into, I'm sure, here in a little bit. But that's also why he can't be as powerful as Guardians in general.
Yeah,
he can't actually make it work.
Right, and also as Guardians, we kind of have a good amount of years of experience. Most Guardians take, like, our Guardian is unique, and that's one of the reasons that the Vanguard are nervous about our Guardian, is because of the uniqueness of our Guardian and how fast we've mastered the light. But most Guardians take a long time to master the use of light, and that's kind of implied is because it takes, you have to rearrange the way you think about things. Mm-hmm. Granted, we don't have any memories of our old lives, but there are still kind of instinctual, like there's the instinctual need to survive that is in any base species and animal. And like, so, like a warlock can fly, sure, but it's kind of like the Hive and the Throne Worlds being psychomutable. The other example is like the Lantern Corps from DC, right?
Right. Green Lantern, and
you can do whatever you imagine, but you have to be able to imagine it. And if you can't even imagine it, then you can't do it. It's like you see, when you saw the intro to D2 and you saw Ikora kind of flying. And then you turn around and most warlocks can barely jump. That's because they're not imagining things, which actually makes it very interesting point that I'm gonna.
Here's also another question for you: does he have the same? I mean, you'd like to talk about your ritual, the way that you manifest the light as a way to call it forward. I can't remember if he has anything that looks any remotely like our own.
I honestly was too busy hiding and shooting.
I know,
him.
I was too. I want to go back and watch it. At some point and see if he has the same manifestation triggers that we have. It would be interesting.
Yeah, I mean, and the other thing is even if you don't use, even if it turns out that the rituals are not necessary, if you look at it as a mental focus, it's literally training your brain to do a ritual is not just about the motions taken. It's also about the mind. It's the state of mind.
Right.
And so, excuse me, a ritual can differ from individual to individual and still have the same effects because it's partially because of the state of mind. You see that a lot in real life, in reality. You see that a lot with religions, in where you have prayer beads of a kind. Most religions, most organized religions have prayer beads. And the reason why is because it's a ritualistic process. It allows you to, it's a tool in which it helps your mind, your mental state, achieve a particular state of being. And it's not because there's mystical powers in the prayer beads. I know there's people. I'm just saying there are people who misunderstand this, and it's not. That's not at all what is being done. It is literally a meditative tool in which you are using, and you see this a lot with one particular example that comes to mind is walking a labyrinth. As a Catholic, and I'm kind of familiar with Christian faith. The process of walking a labyrinth is, if you're curious, you should go look it up, because a labyrinth, a lot of people hear labyrinth and they assume it's the maze and the minotaur and all that. And that's not actually what a labyrinth is. A labyrinth is actually a very intricately laid out path in which there's only one path, and it takes you to the center, and then you meditate inside the center, and then you turn around and you come back out. And the process, the concept there for the meditation, as far as a meditation tool, is that as you're walking a path to the center, it takes a long time and it requires concentration to stay on the path, because that's what they want you to focus on. They want you to start focusing on the singular process of staying on the path. And then once you get to the center, there's usually in most labyrinths that you're meditating in, there's benches or chairs or something that you can sit in and meditate. And then when you feel like you've completed, you then reverse the process and you come, and basically the concept is you're coming back out of that secluded space and you're coming back into the real world. And so you're bringing that knowledge back with you. The
labyrinth is a really good example of it. I mean, going back to kind of like speed or anything like that, you don't necessarily have to have an item to do that. Anything that you do repetitively with the same intent and concentration over and over and over can become a tool like that. I know that at my job, I do a lot of very repetitive tasks, and I don't have to think anymore while doing it, so I can focus on other things.
But not the Dark Tower.
Right, no, because I can't listen to Rhea, because Rhea is a terrifying character. I literally messed up 3 payrolls because of her. Anyway, going back to the Traveler in Gaul. So we kill Gaul, and he's sitting there steaming next to the Traveler. I mean, that is amusing to me. He's steaming. He doesn't have the black oozy stuff that all the other Cabal have.
Yeah, I did.
Did you notice that?
Yeah.
So he doesn't have that. I don't know if he doesn't need it as far as atmospheric pressurizing of his suit,
or if it's been replaced at that point.
Right. So he's steaming, but he's not oozing like the other ones tend to do. And then we get him doing this whole Fern Gully effect and just rising up. I can't think of anything else, but he's like a giant white Fern Gully with a very Oryx-like original manifestation. Did you notice the wings?
Yes. Yeah, I did. I thought the wings was more a nod to the Dawnblade.
Maybe. I mean, his armor set, he has wings that he wears. On his back, he is literally wearing a pair of wings. It's granted not very attractive as far as a suit. I mean, the suit is, I don't know. If you're a Cabal, you might like that sort of thing. But the wings very much so felt like the Oryx draw-in imagery when you first do the King's Fall.
Yeah. That
That operatic
was,
feeling.
from the Cell.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
it had that same kind of feeling to it. So if we go back to last week's conversation talking about the speaker and why the speaker thinks the traveler like chose the guardians, the devotion, the sacrifice, and sacrifice leads to death. This is the last step in it for Gaul to be able to quote unquote resurrect. He dies. Granted, like Chat was saying earlier, he took the light. He wasn't actually given the light. He took it. The light didn't choose him.
Which is interesting because like throughout the entire campaign, he's like, no, if I take it, I've failed and I don't fail. And I'm like, but you did.
But he gets to that. I mean, he kills what's his face?
Consul. Yeah, I think I kind of took that as that was when he kind of mentally was gone. He snapped at
last
that point.
Straw. Well, I mean, Consul basically took away his only guy.
Oh yeah, no.
I
mean, like
Consul killed Speaker.
Right. I definitely suppose it.
Sort of.
But I mean, like I definitely see the Consul as pushing Gaul to that point. But I mean, what I mean is like when Gaul chokes the Consul and kills him, I'm pretty sure he kills him. Like I see that as, I mean, because like up until that point, Gaul had been, for all intents and purposes, Gaul had been pretty calm in his dealing with the Consul, and he referred to him constantly as his old friend and all this. And then all of a sudden, he just like snaps, and it just like, I mean, it's just about face, and he chokes him, and then he goes from that to kind of taking the light. And up until that point, it all had been about proving that he was worthy about giving it. And so to me, that just was like, I'm like, yeah, you're gone.
That's after we had gotten to the Almighty, though. I believe. Right.
I mean, like, I think
that he is getting ready to lose.
Right. I think there were a lot of stressors. I think there were a lot of stressors in Gaul's life at that point.
Gaul went nuclear.
Us being one of the large stressors, as we do,
Definitely. I mean, okay, so he does his Fern Gully, goes up, and then the Traveler does something while he's trying to make his speech like, I'm immortal, I'm a god, blah blah blah, I'm a typical bad guy who can't stop talking before I end up realizing my ultimate doom, because tropes are fun. Anyway, Traveler breaks out of its cage, which you realize, I don't know if you realized it right away that it was an actual, like, I just saw the starfish, the arms. I didn't realize it was actually encasing it as well as the arms. I thought it was like draining the power, which made the thing turn reddish, but there's literally an encasing around it.
Oh, you mean like the shield?
The shield around the Traveler?
Yeah, because like when you saw the starfish, that was when the starfish like initially deployed, you could see the casing like ripple out around it, and that was right before our light got, or when it went around and connected around the back of it, that's when our light got stolen.
Right, but that's like the energy ripple. That I remember seeing, but if you take a look at the Traveler throughout the campaign, it's really having a shell put around it on top of its actual energy encasing.
Yeah, it was like a net. It was an energy net. It reminded me a lot of Guardians of the Galaxy, the ship shields that they did at the end. It reminded me a lot of that. Like, that's kind of how I always saw it.
Oh, yeah. I mean, then that bust out, and it looks like a physical thing, because it's literally breaking out of... It's not just like a netting, like a fishing net. It's a lot more substantial than that.
And that to me is... I kind of think that might be why there's a little bit... Well, not a little bit, but you see that the egg is cracking. I think that might have been a part of the reason why, is because it wasn't just a matter of pushing energy out. It also had to actually break that shell. Right. And so in order to do that, it had to shed some of itself to bump the casing enough to actually break that energy wave, I guess. Again, this is kind of why I see it as the Guardian of the Galaxy shield or ship shields, is because it's literally like, when I keep forgetting what's his face's name, but when his ship kind of lands into that shield and is pushing through, and it finally, and it, no, not Star-Lord, the big bad. When he finally pushes and snaps that shield netting and everything collapses as soon as that first puncture gets through. That's kind of how I saw it, was like it had to throw something into the netting with enough force to kind of give it a crack. And then as soon as the crack was there, then it was like, oh no, you want power? Have some power.
Right.
Here you go, Energizer Bunny. We're gonna strap a nuclear fusion core to you. Have fun.
So I'm going to pose a devil's advocate.
Chat. Traveler said, "Hold my beer."
Or, oh no, you didn't. Here's a devil's advocate type of question for you. Did the Traveler actually awake, or is it just because he contained the light, the Traveler couldn't push out light like it had been? Did it literally just implode because it had too much in it?
That's a good question, because technically, if the Traveler, as we know, the Traveler has now we know the Traveler has been putting out light, and then you cut, basically you have kind of blocked it up. I mean, because that's what happened, right? Because all of us lost power because they stoppered it. The pressure, I mean, yeah, technically I could see the argument there too, being that, and if you look at the Traveler, it's got giant clockwork things inside of it. You could also make the argument, yeah, I mean, I can see the argument being made that it's not necessarily something that woke up, it's just the pressure got too much, and structural integrity,
nuclear reactor style,
something had to give. Though I hate to say, that's just a concept to bring up, because I right. No. I mean, I guess
somebody's going
right.
to.
No, and it's a like I said, it's a completely valid point. I just think that the way that Gaul, the conclusion of Gaul's little power tantrum, to me kind of speaks more to at least some degree of cohesion on the Traveler's part.
Consciousness-ish.
I'm trying to go in line with what you're going with, even if it's not like pure consciousness. It does seem like there is a
deliberateness.
Yes. Yeah. Even if it's not something that we would identify as, hey, this thing is an entity in and of itself. Let's go with that argument. There does seem to be a degree of self-preservation in the sense of, you trap me and bad Gaul. Here's a slap. Here's a slap in the head.
I mean, it could be taken a lot of different ways. I know everyone alive is awake again. Well, in a way, yeah. And I think that's a really interesting perspective, but there's other ways that Bungie could take this.
Right. And I mean, one of the scannables that you kind of have noted here is like, when we find one of the shards, it's like, I think Ghost says, like, the power is even in this tiny piece is amazing, like just like the sheer amount of power that's even in these little shards that we find is, beyond expectations. And so you magnify that times, if you're in stream, the Traveler is filling up my view screen. Like, I mean, the shards are itty bitty pieces of this thing, and you magnify it, as many times as you need to make a full version of that. Yeah, and the power level is well over 9,000, and I mean, I say that with all seriousness, like, it is beyond anything that is imaginable. And so, yeah, if you stopper that up, you're not just putting Mentos in Diet Coke, you're putting, dynamite
I can
in
put
it.
a tiny counterpoint to it because of the shard that we find in the EDZ. All the shards that we have broken off of the Traveler right now are like attracted to the main body of the Traveler. The one in the EDZ is not, whether that's because of distance and the weakening of the the gravitational pull or something else.
Well,
there's
just
counter arguments and whatnot.
Just to be clear, too, the shard in the EDZ is not the only shard that is not attracted.
Not at all.
I think I know that there's the EDZ. I think if I'm remembering correctly, there's one in the Middle East. I think there's one in one of the Americas, if I remember right. But I mean, like I know there's been others mentioned as being as other dead zones. So I think that the interesting thing is, I would say that it's not attracted to the traveler, maybe because of the distance, time. The magnetism has dulled over time, and then also because they're described as being corrupted. They're described as being different from what we use.
Cast off.
Well, I mean, like another scannable, right? Another one of your scannables that you have mentioned here is like the energy. Like when Ghost looks at the energy outputs from these shards, he actually makes the comment that the energy that is being off-put by the shard is different from what we use. Because the corruption, whatever the corruption factor is actually interacting with the traveler's power in some way, but it's actually still powerful. Like
Traveler caught a cold.
Right, but it's not lessening the power.
Right.
Like you would think. I mean,
you still have as much vitality. It's like an infection. You still are
right, but
vital.
I mean,
granted, you run slower.
But I mean, I actually think
sick.
I think this is actually more in line with what the Awoken are. This weird mixture of dark and light, but it creates something other. It creates something more, and not more in like the hierarchical sense, but something like that is both.
Coexisting.
It's
coexisting in the same being.
Yeah.
I mean, speaking of like the blasts that create that kind of thing, do you want to talk about the consequence of the campaign? Because the last scene that we have before, it's actually after credits. It's after the credits run is when the Traveler blast goes out. It sends out the shockwave.
The consequences, and I labeled this concept the consequences and post-campaign events. Because I'm assuming if you've made it this far into the episode and not turned us off because we spoiled something, you have finished the campaign and have watched this clip. Or if you haven't finished the campaign, you know the clip that we're about to talk about. And that is, okay, so official announcement of spoilers here.
We're way past that.
We're way past it, but just like ultimate spoilers here. There's a series of triangle ships. There's a big debate on what these are, and I mean, as normal, we don't know what they are. We do know that they were activated when. Okay, so here. Okay, let me back up even further.
Yeah, please back up
because
there's history.
Yeah, this is the biggest confusion point for me right now. Is that first off, how in the nine hells did the blast radius reach that far? Because there's a couple arguments that I can think of immediately, but when in Destiny 1 we hear about the collapse and the event of the collapse, right? And the creation of the Awoken, we hear that the Traveler did something similar to what it did at the end of Destiny 2. It blew this light wave out to push that darkness back, which kind of connects back to that Orphic hymn that we read at the beginning. It pushed this dark mist back. But the description was that the light didn't go past the reef. Like
the Traveler didn't implode when it did it the first time either. Though.
Well, but it did. It did.
Because it blew out the bottom.
Right, but I mean, well, it didn't implode. It kind of exploded. But
right.
I mean, but
this
when
time around, it literally exploded with energy.
Well, and that's what I was about to say is like my one counterpoint to why the power level or the whatever you want to call it, the wave of light didn't go, shockwave, let's go with that. The reason the shockwave didn't go so far is because the Traveler purposely pulled the punch.
Mm-hmm.
And that kind of ties into my personal theory, just kind of what I kind of feel the triangle ships are. I think I kind of view the triangle ships as predators of the Traveler. And it's like a shark. You drop a piece of chum in the water, and the sharks immediately zero in on the blood. I think the Traveler.
Go back to our original card that we read about the Traveler at the very beginning of the episode.
Mm-hmm.
There's a mention of it.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see, where's it at? Did it know it was being hunted across the stars?
Yep. But my point there being is that the reason it pulled its punch was it first off, which makes me kind of confident that the triangle ships are not the darkness, because the darkness, I think, is something different. I think the darkness is separate from the triangle ships, or it's a different form, because when it pushes the darkness back in the collapse, given what we know from Cage-6's journals and stuff like that, we're pretty confident that the entities that they were combating in the collapse were probably taken, or some variant form of them. And I think it was just buying time, basically. But I think the other thing is that makes me think that the triangle ships are worse than the Taken and Hive.
Oh, I 100% think that the triangle ships are worse.
Because if it's pulled its punch to that point, and it was like, okay, yeah, you're bad, but these guys are worse, and I don't want to wake them up, and by basically, hey, here I am, signal fire,
right, right, and that's one of the things that I think is that it's been running, and with the vision, this goes right back to the beginning of the campaign when you get the first vision after you lose your light, you see the triangle ships. And you see them fall into the water, or what looks like water.
Yeah, what looks like water. Yeah.
With that kind of imagery, it almost seems like the Traveler is warning you about them, because the last time we saw the triangle ships, it was in a very, very, very long time ago in the background image that you talked about at the beginning of the game.
And we didn't. If you I'll send it in Discord, but like when you look at it, they like, knowing what we know now, you see them, but like when you look at it, it just looks like hexagon artwork. Like it just looks like background artwork. You wouldn't pay any attention to it. But now we know of triangle ship. Like now we know about the triangle ships and that they're actually out there in the darkness beyond. And you look at the image that is the wallpaper, and you're like, oh no, those are like I'm pretty confident to say those are meant to be the triangle ships.
Well, we also had, if I remember correctly, there was concept art for the Taken King that everyone thought the dreadnought imagery that was very triangle ship shaped. I think they personally, from a perspective of making the game, I think they repurposed it slightly. The imagery for it. It could have been originally warning us of orcs and the dreadnought and everything, but I think they repurposed the design of the ship and then gave us the triangle ships as a possible new enemy or new threat, even if it's not an enemy that we face. But I definitely agree with you. The shark in the water type concept.
Oh my god! It just like I saw that, and I was like, oh, those are the predators. Like those are the things. Those are the things that eat the things that we call gods. It just, to me, that was the first thing that immediately sprang to mind. And the more I think about it, the more it's like when you watch how the wave of light kind of like goes through and, activates all these different things. And then it's just a whisper, it's just a whisper when it touches those triangle ships. And all of a sudden, all of them are like, and like they start swinging toward, and I'm like, oh, they just got a scent. Like they've been dormant between. I keep thinking, and this is kind of me coming from a long history of reading like Star Wars novels, And as much as it pains me to say it, they really reminded me of the Yuzhan Vong, which is a species in Star Wars that actually traveled between galaxies. And in order to travel between galaxies, they basically like launched themselves into the void between these galaxies, and then went dormant. And their entire argument, or the entire structure of their species, was they didn't have technology; they had all organic stuff. But the important thing is like they were one of the very few species who actually was able to jump between galaxies, and the way they did that was they created worlds basically in which they lived while they're traveling between these galaxies. And that's what kind of like, when I saw the scene of those triangle ships, that's like one of the first things that sprang to mind was this is a space beyond anything that we have. Like, this is a space that even if we could get to the edge of the galaxy, this is beyond that. This is something not just otherworldly, not just this is beyond alien.
This is from the void itself.
I don't know if it's from the void itself. I see where you're going with
right.
that.
We don't have confirmation from that, but
right, and I know
I could see it being that way.
Right, and there's also the nod to that possibly being the case in the Callus cards, or the Callus book, in the raid gear. Callus talks about going to the edge and looking into the void and seeing something that made him tremble. There is definitely a connection there that I see there.
Books of Sorrow have that same kind of feel.
Right.
Too.
I mean, in the Books of Sorrow, I mean, like, I definitely attribute the Hive more to the Yuzhan Vong as far as like the species connection, because they kind of more are, like, as far as like socially and like technologically speaking, they're definitely more of that case. But that image of those triangle ships, I mean, to me it was like watching a family of sharks turn tail and come towards something. And
yeah, definitely.
So but I definitely don't think that it's the darkness.
So the light and the darkness. Are we using those terms still? Because wasn't there a big hubbub before Destiny 2 came out about the term?
Yeah. Okay. So here's the funny thing. Everyone is like, "Don't use the darkness. Don't use darkness." I was standing by Shax the other day, and Shax mentions the darkness. He's like, "Man, if I had a hunter like you, I wouldn't have to worry about the darkness." Or so he said something, and I was like, "You aren't following the rules."
Right. Rahul says, if you move into the darkness, does it look back at you? I mean, we still have mentions of it in games. I find the concept of not wanting the darkness to be a thing a little, I don't know.
Yeah.
I
mean, like, I think it's still a valid thing. I think if we're going to use the terms, I think that the triangle ships, if they are connected to the darkness, they are a different, it feels weird saying this, they're a different shade of the darkness than anything. I mean, like, they're a different aspect of it than we've seen.
Well, I mean, if you think of the light and the darkness being two, not like sentient type beings, but actual concepts, abstract concepts, the darkness being a consuming type thing and the light being life-giving, it would make sense that they would have a type of hunter type character be the triangle ships, or similar to the triangle ships in concept.
Which really gets
more debate about it.
Really gets fun when you start applying the theory of the symmetry into it.
Oh God, please, let's not tonight. Not
Ulatan!
Tonight. Not tonight. Not tonight. We will do symmetry at some point, because that's a whole...
Symmetry's a fun one. I love
it. It is. But we can't do it in 15 minutes.
No, yeah. Symmetry is, there's a light side and a dark side, and it's a force that binds us together. It's duct tape! I'm sorry, the force.
Well, it's a a Tao.
Yeah,
Yin yang.
it's a definitely that. Though, oh, never mind.
Anyway,
I will make this comment. There is an item from Destiny 1 that actually begs the question of the triangle ships that is connected to Ulantan.
Which item is that?
The dagger. You are not the first, or what was it? You are not the first hero, nor Oryx the first villain to meet upon this plane. It was like, what are you talking? Oh.
I want to go back and reread a lot of Destiny 1 Grimoire at this point and see how much of it is changed in a new light. I mean, it's obviously hasn't changed, but to see how it's looked at in a different light.
Yeah.
Interesting. I need to take it with me to work.
There you go. Book. There you go. So, I mean, and that's really, I mean, I think that's a pretty good comprehensive look at the Traveler. I mean, obviously, there's significantly more that we could go into as far as like intricate details and growth and, you know, theories, especially theories are going to go every which way. And they always are, which is why we have the Discord chat.
Yeah.
But I know you wanted to talk, actually kind of moving into a little bit of the shout outs, final comments. I know you really, really wanted to talk about some of the, speaking of theories. I'm going to let you take the stage.
Definitely. So if you've been listening for a little while, you know that we have the website, and I don't know if you know on our website, but we have articles written by community members of our Discord chat. And community members of people who just listen to our podcast, who jump in there and who get into what's called our writing studio. And we're giving them a platform, or giving you guys a platform to be able to write articles that Blue and I read through and we approve, and then we'll put on the website. We've gotten 3 really good ones lately. One by Triggerblade X, one by Infested Potato, and then the last one by KGC Man 92. And Infested Potato had a really good theory about the evolution of light, if I remember correctly. Right, Blue?
What was that? Sorry.
Infested Potato's theory on the evolution of light.
Sorry, I was sending you a message. Actually, I was saying when you made a comment about us reviewing, I just wanted to make sure that people knew our when she says we review before we post it to the site, literally what we're doing is we're going through. We might suggest some grammar changes, or might make a few minor changes. We don't change anything in it, but the main thing that we're doing is we are just making sure that it's safe for work. We don't change anything. So these articles that you're reading from these guys, it's all them. All we do is we just want to make sure that it's not adult rated. Let's go with that word. So that's actually what I was typing when you called me out on that one. Yes.
So
Potato had the theory of light. KJC has the amazing fan fiction, and then Triggerblade also has a very good fan fiction.
And you can do it in your own style.
Right.
You can write it in your own style, in your own way, in your own perspective.
Yes.
So.
It's entirely up to you. And theories, we have a tag that if you go to the website and you go to the articles section, all the personal theories that have been sent in are going to be under the spinfoil. Unless we have Rhino does the weekly armor discussions, or item discussions, that will be in the lore, because the lore tab, because it's kind of deriving directly from quotes. And while it is expanding on that, it's mostly, when you read those, it's mostly historical expansion that is explaining where that kind of connects to. It's not actually being like, this is proof that, I'm trying to think of something.
Rhino. Okay. So Rhino does in text what Blue does in the show. So when you hear Blue talk about the history of Plutarch or anything like that, or the history of prayer beads and stuff like that. That's kind of something that Rhino does with the items of the game. So if you get an item that has a historical connection of any sort, or even literature connected of any sort, he will try to find that. And there's actually a group of people helping him with that for the Destiny 2 items, which is a new project that we're starting soon, I believe.
We have a few projects, but yeah. So in all those entries, if you have something, I know that there's been a lot of interest in getting those going. If you have interest in that, please email us, or message me privately on Discord, message Green privately. Emailing the group box is probably the quickest way to get it, because basically Green and I both are going to be looking at that and just making sure, that's how we get the first initial round. And generally the process is, what we do is we have you guys submit the first article in an email so that we can just review, like I said, make sure it's okay for maturity level. And then we'll post that on the website. And then once we get that posted on the website, we're going to go ahead and we'll set you guys up as, I think it's contributors on the website, which basically allows you to draft the next round of whatever you want, draft it directly on the website. And then that way it's just a little bit more of a streamlined process and then you also get your name, your account gets attached to all those posts. And so you get notified, you get all that, attention, which is what we're doing. And we're trying to get you guys that stuff.
Definitely. Yes. It's kind of a cool thing that we're doing, kind of cool.
I like it. It gives me an excuse to get to read some really cool, not just theories, but like fan fiction, man. Fan fiction for some of the stuff that, like, all of us have our own interpretation of what our characters are doing, whether that be really, really complex or really simple. It doesn't really matter. I mean, like, one of the ones that I will be hopefully getting up this weekend. I'm trying to get it up this weekend. For KJC, I'm going to try to get his posted. He actually has a really cool interaction with his character's ghost, and like, and it's just, to me, it's just, I love reading that stuff. I love doing that. And this is just basically me finding a way to trick myself into giving myself permission to read stuff like that. And we also get to publish it and, get you guys' attention, gets that attention out for you, because it's great stuff. I love doing this part.
Definitely. And we also have articles on the website about some other games. So it's not just Destiny. Destiny is the primary one, but
yes.
Pins Halo actually put up a really good article about the Halo series.
We might have another one coming.
I'm excited for this.
I know. I am too, because I know the topic, and I'm really excited for it.
But if you have something like that you're super passionate about, run it by Blue and I, and we might be able to put that on there too. Now, granted, we're still trying to keep within, hopefully, Bungie is what I'm hoping.
I'm even tempted to do, like we're talking about the books and stuff. I'm tempted to say, if you want to do a book review, you want to put a book review up there, I'd be okay with putting book reviews up there.
I did get some hits on my book review.
I'm trying to think what else. Here's what I'll say. If you are passionate about anything, just like with the Discord, if you are very passionate about something and you want an avenue to put your thoughts out there, message me. I will figure a way to get it on the website. I'm more than happy to figure out a way to make it work. If you're passionate about it, and I'll be honest, I'm game for just about anything. My one caveat is it's just got to be accessible to all ages. Like, we don't need any mature warnings. Right. That's my one caveat. Is now, when I say mature, when I say accessible to all ages, I don't mean like reading comprehension accessible. I mean content. I don't want to get into a situation where it's awkward for people to read something. That's my one.
Right.
That's my one qualifier. Other than that, I'm Katie bar the door. I'm fine with whatever.
And there's other websites if you are so inclined to write something like that. There are other websites to publish that kind of thing onto.
Yes, and I'm more than happy to go and find. I don't even know any off the top of my head, but I'm sure it's the internet. We can find a couple.
I do. When you have to tell students to stop looking at a particular website and stop reading. It's just one of those things. Anyway, on to a lighter note. Let's go on. I may have broken Blue a little bit with that thought.
Oh, that's just funny.
It is. It's all sad. But next weekend, the weekend of the 20th, 21st, and 22nd, I don't show people, if you are listening to this past this is October 20th, 21st, and 22nd of 2017. That is in. The Dames of Destiny are going to be doing their 4th annual breast cancer awareness charity stream. And the Focus Fire Chat is going to be a part of it. Mainly, Yay! At this time, it's me. Blue might be able to jump on.
I'm going to try my best.
But I will be streaming and closing out the whole charity event next Sunday night, starting at 9 p.m. Eastern, which means it's 8 p.m. Central and 7 p.m. Mountain. And I don't remember the rest of the divides. Time zones are difficult. So I'm just trying to get you guys some info. It is a 3-hour block that I'll be doing. Some other bigger name streamers that are going to be helping with it. Mylan is on Friday, I believe. Ballistic Kitty's on either Friday or Saturday. Bell's on Saturday Bell's on Sunday. Bell's like midday Sunday. Guardian Outpost is like the first one on Friday. They're going to be raising money for breast cancer research, which I think is super important because I've got some personal ties to that, which I'm going to talk about on stream next week. And yeah, you should come and join me on the 22nd, starting around 9 p.m. Eastern, because I'm going to be streaming some Destinies, and actually Maury's going to be modding mine, so I get to talk to Maury the whole time. I'm excited. Maury is amazing. But yeah, we'll be doing that, and definitely stop by. If you're not stopping by during my stream portion of the stream, definitely stop by sometime next weekend and hear them out. If you have some money to donate, great. If not, helping is always good.
Or donating just raising awareness.
Yeah, definitely. Getting the word out. Mm-hmm. I mean, breast cancer is kind of a thing that we tend to talk about a lot because it has its month. But a lot of people don't realize how devastating it can be to everybody, not just women. Anyway, that is my shout outs / promo for next week. Blue.
For next week, for me, I'm going to be probably the latter half of next week. I'll probably be kind of out of touch for a lot of people. I'll be playing solo parent next weekend, which is why I might be on the charity stream. I'm going to try my very best, but any parents out there who appreciate, yeah, solo parenting is like the toughest gig, and I have the utmost respect for solo parents. That's all I'm gonna say on that. But the next week's topic is going to be War Minds. So we're going to be doing an update similar to the update that we did on the Traveler this week. We will be doing that on the War Mind or War Minds, depending. Tune in next week for that debate.
Oh boy.
And then 2 big shout outs for 2 new subs over on Twitch, ORLDST and TDL61698. I'm a huge fan of the alphanumeric codes. I would love to know what they mean if you have the time. But yeah, thank you so much for your guys' subscriptions over there on Twitch. We really appreciate the support. And if you were in before the show started, We have added a few little things to the Twitch layout. If you are interested in seeing what shenanigans we get up to during the week, we do game streams usually every Monday and Tuesday nights through the week, with a few exceptions. We all have that synced up on our Google Calendar. If you have Google, or if you're interested in that and you just want to see our schedules, we have that all synced up on there. I know there's been some uptake in interest on that. So if you have any questions on syncing that, you can actually sync that calendar up and it will notify you before we go all live, or before we do anything. We have it set up to push out notifications for that process as well. And if, like I said, if you have any questions on getting that set up, please let either myself, Green, or any of the moderators know, and we can walk you through it. It's Google, so it's pretty straightforward process. But that being said, I think that's it, and we'll run through the outro real fast and stick around for a little bit of an after show. With that, we'll begin to wrap the chat up. Thank you again to those over on Twitch for coming to spend your evening with us. If you'd like to join us for a live streaming of the episode each week, please be sure to give us a follow over on twitch.tv/FocusFireChat. Links to all our other sites can also be found with our episode archives over on the new and improved www.focusfirechat.com. Please be sure to email us at focusfirechat@gmail.com with any feedback or questions for our team concerning the podcast. And please, please, please let us know how we're doing by giving us some feedback on iTunes as well. Also, make sure to check out our partner podcast within the Guardian Radio Network over on theguardiansofdestiny.com. So, until next time, focus your fire and may your light shine bright.